My pregnant stepmother was cheating on my father and acting as if her child was from her lover. When I told my father, my stepmother threw me out of the house. When I was 13, I was already learning what it meant to navigate a blended family. My mother had passed away when I was young, and my father, Michael, met Marina a few years later. Marina was younger, with lively eyes and endless enthusiasm for life. She was nothing like my biological mother, but she carried a warmth that made it easier for me to accept her into our lives. Over time, Marina became a fixture of comfort and joy in our home, and after a while, I even started to call her mom. Marina and my dad seemed so happy together. Their relationship seemed strong, grounded in mutual respect and shared laughter. We'd go on family trips, share dinners, and spend countless evenings watching movies together. There was a peacefulness in our home that I cherished, and after years of just me and my dad, it felt like our family was finally complete. Marina's role extended far beyond that of a stepmother. She became someone I could confide in. She was always there, ready to listen to my teenage worries and dreams. I felt so grateful, thinking that things could stay this way. But that changed when Marina announced her pregnancy. The news came over dinner one evening. My dad was beaming with pride, and Marina's face glowed with a mix of excitement and anxiety. I tried to be happy for them, telling myself this would be good, that having a sibling would be fun. But as Marina's pregnancy progressed, things started to shift. It began with small changes. Marina spent less time asking me about my day and more time preparing for the baby. Then came the bigger things. She started seeming distant, distracted, and sometimes irritable, snapping at me for things that had never been issues before. And gradually, her warmth toward me started fading, replaced by something colder and harsher. One evening, she pulled me aside. "Listen, honey," she said, her tone more stern than usual. "With the baby on the way, we're all going to have to make some adjustments. You're getting older now, and I think it's time you start helping out more around the house." I nodded, though I didn't quite understand why Marina seemed so tense. I had always done my share of chores, but this felt different, like I was being pushed into a role I didn't choose. As Marina's pregnancy continued, my dad seemed oblivious to the tension building between Marina and me. He was fully absorbed in the idea of becoming a father again. And Marina, sensing his excitement, started subtly hinting that I wasn't adjusting well or that I was being difficult. Whenever I tried to talk to him about how different she had become, he brushed it off, calling it teenage angst, and said I just needed to adjust to the idea of a sibling. One afternoon, while Dad was at work, I overheard Marina on the phone. Her voice was low and tense. "No, I haven't told him," she hissed, her words barely audible through the door. "I can't risk it. Not now." She paused, then continued. "Yes, I know he thinks it's his. But he can't find out. Do you understand?" I froze, my mind reeling as I tried to piece together what I'd heard. Could Marina be implying that the baby wasn't my dad's? The thought horrified me. I felt paralyzed by fear and confusion. Should I confront her? Should I tell my dad? What if I'd misunderstood? As weeks passed, I couldn't shake the suspicion. I started watching her behavior more closely, noticing how she was on edge whenever Dad mentioned the baby or their plans for the future. Meanwhile, Marina's attitude toward me grew colder and more distant. She started reprimanding me for minor slip-ups, setting stricter rules around the house, and looking at me with an expression that made me feel like I was a nuisance. The warmth that had once defined our relationship was gone. I tried again to tell Dad about her behavior, but he just dismissed my concerns, saying I was having a hard time adjusting. It was like screaming into a void, and each failed attempt to make him see only pushed me further into isolation. Then, one day, while Marina was out at a doctor's appointment, I noticed she had left her phone on the kitchen counter. It was unlocked. My heart raced as I considered whether I should look through it. I didn't want to invade her privacy, but my doubts gnawed at me, refusing to let me rest. Unable to resist, I picked up the phone and scrolled through the messages. What I found confirmed my worst fears. Marina had been texting a man named Jason, someone I had never heard of before. Their messages were filled with references to the baby. Over and over, Marina reassured Jason that everything would be fine, saying, Michael doesn't suspect anything. It was a betrayal beyond anything I could have imagined. And in that moment, the trust one had placed in Marina shattered. For days, I wrestled with this information. Part of me wanted to confront her directly, to demand the truth, while another part feared what might happen if I did. The weight of the secret pressed down on me, suffocating me, and I felt helpless, unsure of what to do. Finally, the tension reached a breaking point. During a family dinner, Dad brought up their plans for the nursery, asking if I would help paint it. Marina shot me a subtle warning glance, one that made my skin prickle. I'd had enough. Dad, I blurted out, my voice trembling. I think you need to know something about the baby. Marina's face turned pale, and my dad looked up surprised. What is it, sweetheart? He asked, sensing the seriousness in my tone. I swallowed, feeling Marina's gaze like a knife against my skin. I, I don't think it's your baby. I finally managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. The silence that followed was unbearable. Marina's face contorted with anger, her carefully composed demeanor shattering in an instant. She launched into a tirade, accusing me of lying, of trying to tear the family apart because I was jealous of the baby. My dad looked between the two of us, his face twisting in disbelief. I'm not lying, I said, tears streaming down my face. I saw the messages. She's been texting someone else, someone named Jason. She told him that you didn't know. My dad turned to Marina, his face etched with hurt and anger. Is this true? He asked, his voice barely audible. Caught off guard, Marina stammered, trying to come up with an explanation, but the damage was done. The family dinner, the peaceful facade we had maintained, crumbled in an instant. Dad stood up, unable to look at Marina, and walked out of the room, leaving us in stunned silence. In the days that followed, the atmosphere in the house grew unbearably tense. Marina tried to maintain some semblance of control, attempting to manipulate Dad into forgiving her, insisting that the baby's paternity didn't matter and that we could move past it. But Dad was devastated, unable to reconcile the betrayal he felt. Meanwhile, Marina's demeanor toward me grew colder than ever. She openly blamed me for destroying the family, accusing me of forcing Dad to confront something he might never have known. But I felt a newfound resolve, a strength that came from standing up for the truth, even if it had cost me the last remnants of our relationship. Then, one night, Marina confronted Dad, saying she couldn't live in a home where I didn't respect her, where I'd crossed such boundaries. She threw down the ultimate demand. She wanted me out of the house. Dad, caught between his lingering love for Marina and his confusion over her betrayal, hesitated. But ultimately, he asked me to leave, thinking it was only temporary. Crushed and abandoned, I packed a few belongings and left, heading to stay with Aunt Emma, my mother's sister. Emma welcomed me with open arms, her warm embrace a refuge from the storm I'd been cast into. I broke down in her arms, pouring out all the pain and betrayal I felt. Emma didn't say much. She simply held me and let me cry, whispering that I was safe now, that she would take care of me. Living with Aunt Emma became a healing journey. She understood my hurt, never pushing me to forgive too quickly or to brush off my feelings. Instead, she encouraged me to take things one day at a time, to process the betrayal and slowly rebuild my confidence. I spent countless hours talking with her, and with every conversation, I felt the weight lifting. Over time, I began to feel lighter. I started to focus on my own dreams and ambitions, realizing that I didn't need my dad's approval or Marina's acceptance to feel whole. With Aunt Emma's support, I found the strength to look ahead, to envision a future where I was loved and valued by those who truly cared for me. And as I walked forward, each step felt like a piece of healing, a new chapter in a story I was finally writing for myself. Even though the hurt from my father's choices would remain, it no longer defined me. I had a new family, one bound not by blood, but by the love and understanding we shared. In time, I found peace, letting go of the wounds of the past and embracing the life I was building with Aunt Emma by my side.